the Hub on Hollywood. I'm James.
I'm Jamie. And we love movies!
We love movies!
And we will always love movies, James.
Jamie, great to see you. How you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, we love movies more and more every day. Movies and shows. And we've got some really cool news to talk about this time around. You know that it's not a Hub on Hollywood episode without some Star Wars in there, and we've got some really exciting Star Wars news that we're going to be talking about. James, what do you think it is?
Yeah, so we got some really big news and updates regarding Mandalorian Season 2. We are going to see some characters from the animated world make it into the real-life action format, and so we will be talking about that. Later in this episode, we will be talking to Jonathan Handel, the contributing editor for The Hollywood Reporter. He's talking about how some TV shows are holding actors under contract on unpaid hiatus rather than paying them, and how Netflix is helping turn the tide, helping change that. And then also, one of my favorite things of the past 2 years that I've devoted my life and soul to, Hamilton, the Broadway musical. It's still, and now it's because of the pandemic. It's the production on Broadway has come to a halt. However, Disney helping us all in this dark time that we are all in, bringing it to us in our living rooms. And so we will be talking about Hamilton coming to Disney Plus early and what that means for us. But first, thank you so much for everyone tuning in to this week's episode of the Hub on Hollywood. If you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you are listening to us on any of the major podcasting streaming services, thank you so much. Share us with your friends. It really does help out a lot. You can also follow us on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Hub on Hollywood. Anywhere you look, we'll be there.
We're lurking around the corner, James. We're under your bed. We're maybe not under your bed. But
well, speak for yourself. I'm kidding.
But as for, yes, I can bear witness to the Hamilton also, guys. Like, every time we're in studio getting ready, it's Hamilton. That's where it's at. But first, we are starting with Boba Fett. Boba Fett, where? Okay, James. So for a character who, I looked this up, spent no more than 6 minutes and 32 seconds on screen in the original trilogy, Boba Fett is one of the most beloved characters. I don't know what it is. It was just the body language, the charisma. There was just something about like his little nod to the
badass
dancing girl.
Suits and armor and helmet. That alone, just inspired so many people to copy him. And with the cosplaying, and not only has Boba Fett, has had a longer life outside of the actual original trilogies, but we've seen him on Star Wars Rebels, the animated series. We've seen not only more of him, but the more of the Mandalorian culture and the Mandalorians out there with the Clone Wars as well. And we're just seeing more of this, development thanks to Disney Plus. And one of the greatest things, and I think one of the most the fitting ways for him to be reintroduced into the Star Wars universe is through the Mandalorian. Of course, Mando, he is a Mandalorian himself, and that show was so popular, extremely popular, that character, and it just brought back buzz that it's possible that Boba Fett survived the Scarlet Pit and made his way back and is roaming around, still bounty hunting out there. Yeah, and so we found out that Temuera Morrison, he is actually the guy who played Jango Fett in the Clone Wars, and he is the model for the rest of the Clone War, or the Clone Army. And so, of course, it's appropriate that he himself is coming back to play Boba Fett. We know in the movies, the Attack of the Clones, Jango, when he agreed to have himself cloned for the Clone Army, he worked it out so he would have a son of his own that would age normally, like a normal human being, and that turned out to be Boba Fett. And so, who better to play Boba Fett than Jango Fett? Yeah, Temuera Morrison.
Right, so you have Boba Fett, who, like I said, we had only 6 minutes, and then we got a little bit more of his backstory in the original trilogy. Star Wars has lost a little bit of love, James, with its fans. I feel like we've talked about this at length before. The latest trilogy that came out, they didn't have a plan. They didn't have a place that they were going with it, and it left a lot of people disappointed. So, Disney owns this massive property now, and they're going back and they're trying to find all the things that people loved and putting it out there so that they can keep Star Wars alive. The Mandalorian season 1 was very well received. It was way up there, and I think that it struck a balance with fan service by giving us sort of the little things that we loved from the universe without really overdoing it and cheapening it, and still giving us a really unique story that was compelling and kept us going. And now they're throwing in Boba Fett. They're throwing in this other beloved character. So I don't know if you know this, James, but Boba Fett and his father Jango Fett, even though they wore the Mandalorian armor, not considered actual Mandalorians. They just somehow
that's right.
got the armor. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how this character comes back, interacts with Mando and our baby Yoda, and all of that. But I think there might be a danger, and this is the question that I wanted to ask you. Do you think, up until now, like I said, I think that they've really balanced the fan service. Do you think that this might be going too far? Do you think that they can risk, really ruining the Boba Fett character? And how much faith do you have in this move?
I have an extremely high amount of faith that this is the right move to make. Not only, I'll rewind to season 1. In episode 7, the gunslinger, there's at the very end of the episode where there's this, for maybe people who haven't seen the season, but there is one character who dies. Not very important, but there's a dead character at the very end of episode 7, and then we see this lone stranger, this mysterious stranger, walk up to this body, and all you see are the boots. And the boots, when they're approaching, they make this spur sound, like a cowboy's boot spur sound. And people started theorizing that may be Boba Fett, because if you go back to the original trilogy, whenever Boba Fett's walking around, you hear those spurs moving and chinging and clanking around. Yeah, and as soon as that episode came out, people started theorizing and started going off the walls, hoping and believing that was Boba Fett, and that was a hint that we were going to see him coming back in real life. And this does nothing but help the character. Again, the biggest gripe that everybody has with Boba Fett and his father, Jango Fett, is how they died. They died very quickly in not so very heroic or great, spectacular ways. With Return of the Jedi, we just know that Boba Fett's jetpack gets hit by Han Solo holding a spear of some sort, and he gets launched and falls down into the Sarlacc pit. And nobody, again, George Lucas didn't know how popular that character would be. If he had known that, I'm pretty sure he would have been kept alive. But knowing that, the character itself has survived death through novels and through not Star Wars canon, but Star Wars Legends, which again is not canonical. But everybody loves that character, and so I think this is the right choice to make. In Star Wars, again, if anybody could survive that Sarlacc pit, it's Boba Fett, and it seems like he obviously did. And so I think this is great for the series. I think this is not over too much fan service. This is just the right amount. This is what people have been wanting. And you did mention earlier that there's been this love-hate relationship with Star Wars, and that is true. However, I think the hate or the disappointment really lies with the latest trilogy, the live action. But when you're looking at the Clone Wars, you're looking at Rebels, and when you're looking at comics, the fan base is strong and really positively responsive to what we see not on the big screen. I have nothing but great things to expect and hope to see with his addition. And again, he shouldn't be playing a big role. We're hearing that he may be just playing a minor role, maybe in 1 or 2 episodes, which that's more than we got in the TV trilogy. Oh, sorry, the movie trilogy. So I'll take what I can get.
And you've got Jon Favreau, executive producer and directing. I feel like he is a true Star Wars fan. He's done a fabulous job with season 1. We've got the new villain, played by the actor who plays Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. Yeah. So it's Gus Fring in space. I thought that was really fun and interesting, and he seems to be like a real... he's so good at being a bad guy. So I'm interested to see where that goes and how it ties into the overall Star Wars story. I have a lot of faith in Jon Favreau. He's done a fabulous job. He does a great job in the MCU, and I think coming from the MCU, they know how to. They've really perfected that formula for weaving all of these multiple stories together, multiple characters, and he doesn't have to work that hard because it's all in the same universe. So I wanted to get your theory. How do you think that Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit? What's your theory?
Well,
I can show you mine first.
Yeah, I mean, there are already so many out there already. One of the theories was that the Sarlacc spit Boba Fett out just because he couldn't digest his armor, the Mandalorian armor, which is made out of one of the toughest materials in the entire galaxy. So it spit him out, and along with the armor came Boba Fett. Another version, Boba Fett, fought tooth and nail to get his way out and was able to activate his jetpack and jettison out of there.
Yeah, that was going to be mine. Like, he's wearing a jetpack, people. It's plausible. It's definitely plausible. And the Sarlacc, it looks like it's got a lot of teeth and all, but what, you're slowly digested over 1,000 years? It sounds like you've got a little bit of time to get your bearings and get out of there. So, yep, rocket pack, and he's Boba Fett. He got out. He definitely got out.
And not only are we seeing this character come back to life in more ways than one, but we're also seeing other characters come to life in the real world. Again, not only do we get the news that Ahsoka Tano, one of the most popular new Jedi out of the Clone Wars and Rebels, not only are we hearing that Rosario Dawson is going to be playing her and that she very likely will be popping up in The Mandalorian as well, but also a very popular animated character in, again, Clone Wars and Rebels is also coming back, and that character is Bo-Katan. She was a Mandalorian as well, back when there were many more of them. This is back before the Civil War and when the entire clan pretty much almost destroyed itself, in addition to other enemies as well. But the thing about Bo-Katan is that she is voiced by Katie Sackhoff, and not only did Katie voice Bo-Katan, but she has also been cast to play her in real life. And that's amazing.
Awesome.
You don't always see that when somebody playing either vice versa, playing them on the big screen or on TV, and then it goes to the animated version, a voice actor usually takes over, or vice versa. But in this case, the actual actress who voiced her and knows that character for all these years and has grown with this character, not only that, but she's now playing her in real life. And so really excited for that. It really does open the whole world of the Mandalorian culture. Again, we saw a part of it in season 1 of how the last remaining Mandalorians are now in hiding and they only come out in sparing times. And I think this is a great addition. It's opening up the universe, it's building that world. But I do like how the Mandalorian, it has been sticking to, this isn't a big, huge, grandiose kind of adventure, kind of like with the Skywalker trilogy. These are individual, smaller scale stories that, we see the other side of the galaxy, of the universe, that we really didn't get to see in the movies. So I'm really excited, really jazzed for that.
I really like the idea of bringing on the voice actor. Because like you were saying, like our Star Wars fans are really positive and responsive to the cartoons and all of these other products. And the voice actors bring that essence. They are those characters. They know where it's coming from. And I'm not really a fan of bringing in like big names and things like that. Like I think when you're watching a story, you identify more with someone who looks like an average Joe, or who looks like someone who you would just meet along the way, and who. When you bring in a big name person, it's like, okay, you imagine, you're like, okay, but you remember that person from all of their other previous roles. So I really love bringing in fresh faces. I love the idea of bringing in voice actors, and I'm excited to see that as well. How excited are you for Baby Yoda Season 2?
I'm very excited. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Will Boba Fett, will Bo-Katan be on Mando's side? Will they be trying to help reunite Yoda with the rest of his species? Or will they play adversaries? Are they going to throw wrenches in Mando's plan? So that's going to be interesting to see how their relationships develop, what role they're going to play. And, if how well they're able to nail these characters and nail the feel for this. It depends, are we going to see more of them in season 3, possibly season 4? I understand, now correct me if I'm wrong, if you may have heard, but I understand that the Mandalorian season 2 production is not being affected by the pandemic. I think they're filming later in the year, so I think...
I did hear that.
Okay, so...
Yeah, so I did hear that. Yeah,
so I'm hoping...
being impacted.
Yeah, so I'm hoping, that once we get through this pandemic, or once things start opening up again and we are able to, film these productions, I'm really excited for all these stories, and I'm blanking on his name right now, the director who came up with The Mandalorian, who's directed it.
Favreau?
Favreau, yeah. So,
yeah, the one we put out.
Exactly. So I'm really happy with what he's done with this season. I feel like, again, with Dave Filoni, they both understand the Star Wars universe, and they both understand character development, and, providing fan service but not oversaturating it. Yeah. And I think they found the perfect balance. So I'm excited for that.
Woohoo! All right, Mandalorian season 2, guys. Let us know what you think. Like, share, comment. How excited are you? Do you think that Boba Fett is going to fit in perfectly? Do you think it's going to be a disaster? Let us know.
Yeah. Did you expect Boba Fett to return? I was hoping, again, after that little hint, that tease, I was thinking that must have been Boba Fett. But yeah, really excited. So this is the Hub on Hollywood. Thank you so much for tuning in for this week. Now, I had the fortunate chance to sit down and talk to Jonathan Handel. He is the contributing editor for The Hollywood Reporter, and he recently came out with this article talking about how TV shows are holding actors under contract on unpaid hiatus. And everyone knows, how badly we need money during this time when we're not working. And so rather than paying them, Netflix actually is stepping up to the plate and paying their actors, and that is causing this chain reaction of other studios following suit. So without further ado, here's my interview with Jonathan Handel. All right, Jonathan Handel, contributing editor of The Hollywood Reporter, is joining me right here on the Hub on Hollywood. John, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you. This has been an interesting time, both as a reporter, and I'm also an entertainment and technology attorney. So I kind of have a holistic view of things, and it's been a very unusual time in the industry.
Yeah, and just tell me, just to start, how are you doing during this whole pandemic? You said you're working from home. I mean, but you normally work from home, right?
I do. I'm one of those people who doesn't like being in sealed glass office buildings, and so I wrote my own deal with the law firm a little over 24 years ago. And part of my deal was that I get to work at home. So I haven't worked in an office actually in about 27 years. And I haven't been to a grocery store in 4 years. I rely on Amazon Prime Now and Instacart. I suppose those are unpaid plugs. They've been a bit overloaded during the pandemic, but finally have stepped up to the plate. And that's my story. But it is obviously very uncomfortable not to be able to go meet someone for lunch, go out in the evenings, go out on the weekends. And now to get an email from the city of LA saying it is now mandatory that when you go out in public that everyone in LA has to wear a mask is, I felt at one point I would wear a mask at the same time they made me wear a burqa, but I guess it's come to that.
Yeah, we're facing the same situation over here in Massachusetts. It first started with the city of Boston and other neighboring areas. Now statewide, it's a mandate. But yeah, we're getting used to the new normal of working from home. And speaking about working, a lot of people are out of work, especially in the entertainment industry and in Hollywood. And you came out with this article, I believe it was yesterday, and it's titled "SAG-AFTRA Agencies Persuade Some Studios to Pay Actors Idled Under Contract During Pandemic." Now, I guess some TV shows are holding actors under contract on unpaid hiatus rather than paying them. What's going on, and how's this working?
Well, it's a complicated situation, and I should first point out, for the sake of listeners and viewers, that I think people perceive acting as one of those professions that's glamorous, where people make tons of money and they live these lives that the rest of us can't relate to. That's true, but only of a very, very small segment of the profession. In general, acting is a reasonably well paid to adequately paid to not even well paid kind of profession. It's a pyramid. And the small number of actors that most people can name, do tend to be the ones who are doing well. What's going on now, though, is that, of course, the pandemic and the government shutdown orders have affected entertainment really more brutally than just about any other industry, on a par with the hospitality industry, with restaurants and hotels and travel and things of that sort. Um, and because, if you think about it, when shooting a production, people gather together, it's 100, 200 people on a set. And then, of course, when viewing things, now, viewers these days, of course, everyone watches stuff streaming, but not big movies. And the big movies that power the economics for the major studios, the Marvel movies and the superhero movies and so forth, those movies in general, don't pencil out economically unless they're released in cinemas worldwide simultaneously. And of course, no one's going to cinemas. And very few people are going to go to cinemas even when they're reopened until there's, and everyone has a vaccine and has been vaccinated. So it's a very tough problem. And what's going on the television, on both sides, but let's focus on the television side, is that a lot of series were either at the stage of shooting a pilot, which is the first episode where they then decide, the network then decides, okay, are we going to take this to series, or did this really turn out badly and let's just bury it and forget about it? Or many existing series were in the middle of seasons and had shot a certain number of episodes, but not others. Now, what do you do when you get interrupted? That's a classic case, and this is a classic case of what's called force majeure, which means superior force or major force. And it refers to, earthquakes, riots, civil unrest, all sorts of things, if they inhibit or prevent production. But the language in the union contract, the contract between the Screen Actors Guild, called SAG-AFTRA, and the studios, has a lot of loopholes in it, a lot of sort of permissive language that allows the studios, instead of declaring force majeure, under which they would then have to pay half of a weekly salary every week for a few weeks, and then fish or cut bait, either start paying full salary or the actor can leave. Instead of invoking that provision, the studios have been invoking a completely different provision of the agreement, which refers to hiatus. Now, normally a hiatus is just the time between seasons. We finish shooting season 3, it's not yet on the air. We don't know if we're going to get picked up for season 4. A few months later, we find out. That's the normal hiatus. But the language in the agreement is not built to specify that that's the only kind of place where you can declare a hiatus. And so what's happening is really all over the map. Netflix decided, we're just going to pay out our actors. We're going to pay them the guaranteed amounts under their contracts, even though we're not shooting the episodes at this point and don't know when we will. HBO has decided to pay in sort of increments. The broadcast networks are starting to talk about smaller increments. ABC, for example, is talking about paying half of the guarantee spread out over 10 months in equal 5% per month payments. Because they're afraid, we might not get back to production until January. And the nightmare scenario for the studios is, what if we pay the actors, a bunch of money now? And then, even though that money in some cases should apply against their fee, when we start shooting, they're going to say, I spent that money 6 months ago. Well, why'd you spend it? Well, maybe because you're spending money that you shouldn't, but maybe because your spouse lost their job too and didn't have a replacement source of income. And it was either, pay the mortgage or the rent, or, buy food, or don't. So it's a very, very difficult problem for the studios, for the actors, and for the entertainment community as a whole.
Yeah, we've seen, not only have we been hearing what's been going on in Hollywood, but all around the world where filming takes place. Also here in Massachusetts, in New England, recently we've been having this boom in the entertainment movie industry, more films and TV shows being filmed here. But from what I hear through the grapevine is that when things do start reopening, that extras may just be put in digitally, and they're not going to even be hired. So even right now, when people are not getting paid, even when we do open up down the road, jobs may still not come back. Is that something you may be hearing also over there?
Absolutely. I mean, look, for everyone, I think everyone has the same feeling I do, which is that we're all caught in real life in a bad Hollywood movie I didn't want to pay to see. But that is where we find ourselves. And yeah, extras, so-called background actors is the, the technical term, are at great risk because the way they're normally handled, they're kept together in a pen, basically. They're not treated very well on production sets. They're kept together in a crowd and then released from the pen to go to their positions when it's time to shoot. Well, that's just a petri dish is what that is. And because they are background performers, they're easier to replace digitally than a foreground performer, than an actor who's looking right at the camera and who's having an intense dialogue with another actor, or a romance scene, or a fight scene, or whatever. The people in the background that are watching, say, the fight go on in a bar, you get a quick view of them, then a quick view, and yeah, the one set of people, the two sets of people really who are working during this time, three sets, I should say, but two of them are the computer graphic artists. They're still working. They're working from home now, of course, but the CGI companies, the computer special effects companies, have set things up so that they can, jack into the computers at work and do their work. The animation people are still working. Animation, likewise, can be done at home, and the voiceover for animation can be done in a home studio and, emailed in, file transferred. And then the third group that is working to some extent, significantly, is writers, who, now movie writers tend to work alone. Writers on drama series often work alone, but not always. Writers on comedies almost always work together in groups. They work in a writer's room in real life. They'll get together and they'll discuss, okay, how should this episode look? How should that episode look? What are the jokes? What are the themes we want to carry through? And then maybe one writer gets assigned to write episode 3 and another one to write episode 4, and they go back to their offices. So they're doing virtual writers' rooms using Zoom, as sort of everyone is doing virtual using Zoom. We all live in Zoom now. Mm-hmm. And that's been, my understanding is, that's been generally successful in keeping the writing side of the industry going. But the producing side, as I said, 100 or 200 people on a set, that's not going to be feasible in the near future, absent a vaccine that's widely available and is effective. And the British film industry, in a sort of joint working group of the unions and management and the associations and all, came up with I think 30-page document that I've read some excerpts from that is kind of chilling, because they talk about having only limited numbers of people on the set at any given time. So if you have to adjust the lighting people come on the set. Then they leave, and you have to change the props. The prop people come on, and then you have to rehearse the actors. Well, the actors come on, and the director comes. The reason that's so stomach churning is that balloons the schedule for producing anything. And when you balloon the schedule, you similarly multiply the cost of production. Not the star salaries necessarily, although you've got to have the star hanging out for longer periods of time probably. So there's some effect there. But certainly the crew and the non-star actors and the director, you're talking about a potentially great increase in production costs, in an industry that works sometimes on spec and on margins, and it's going to be very difficult. Now, a lot of people might say, well, the studios, they produce these Marvel movies, and it's going to be hard to do that with all these limitations. Why don't they just produce art house films, let's say, films that don't require as large an audience, films that can recoup their money when they're released on streaming? That doesn't really work, because, if you're Warner Brothers, let's say you release 10 art house movies in a year instead of 10 big movies. And let's say that you turn out well and you make a profit, and you say, pardon me, you say, wow, we made $70 million this year. If Warner Brothers goes to its corporate overlords, AT&T, that owns Warner Media, and says, we made $70 million, AT&T is going to be like, what are you talking about? I mean, that's what we make from Peoria on telephone lines in a month and a half. You haven't moved the needle. What are you doing? The amount of overhead that the studios have, and the amount of responsibility to larger corporate overlords in most cases, because most of them are owned by conglomerates, by larger companies, is such that it's very hard to see how the business pencils out if they don't make these big movies, which is why most non-action adventure films these days are not made by the large studios. Most of them are made by independent or semi-independent companies. The business has changed in the last 20 odd years or so, and has become very tentpole driven, very franchise, comic book movies, action, Marvel and DC Comics and things of that sort. And this pandemic and government shutdown really amount to pushing a lot of dominoes that were wobbly to begin with, because the number of people going to cinemas in this country has been declining every year. The box office numbers, which is what they like to tout, have been going up gradually, but that's only because they've been increasing ticket prices. And that ultimately is a death spiral, because the more you increase ticket prices, the more people stay away. And the more people stay away, the more you have to increase ticket prices. And then the cycle continues. Meanwhile, the cost of electronics, the cost of having a big screen TV in your house, of having a projection screen in your house and a sound system, obviously, those aren't for everyone. A lot of people watch on laptops. Not everyone can afford a big screen TV, let alone a projector. But those things get cheaper every year. If you want to know the way the world is going to be living in 20 years or so, just look at that, take a peek into Bill Gates' house and see how he's living now. If you want to know how the world's going to be living in 5 to 10 years, take a peek into my house. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a big projection screen and a sound system, and it costs an amount of money that was not huge, be large for some, but you know what? It already is cheaper now, and it'll be cheaper in the future. And that's where the world is going. Electronics get cheaper and cheaper and better quality. Meanwhile, the cinema experience and the experience of producing this content does not get any cheaper. So there's a dichotomy there.
And in the meantime, until we were able to make movies again on a large scale, what's being done to help these actors who either are not getting paid at all or maybe even half their sum?
Well, I spoke actually just 10 minutes ago with a talent attorney, and that's really the third leg of the, in fact, I'm going to slightly revise the article that I have out there. The article focused on talent agencies and the union, SAG-AFTRA, working together to get actors paid and to do deals with the studios to say, listen, let's not talk about whether the language is ambiguous or not. Let's talk about the real world. What can you do to keep the actors in place? Because as one of the people, like lawyers I did quote in the article said, the studios are trying to keep the band together. They want to keep the cast and the crew together. And he said very memorably, they're not looking to throw the furniture off the Titanic. But I did speak with a deal-making lawyer, a talent lawyer, just a couple minutes ago, and he said that negotiations are ongoing with the studios, and this actually is very much in flux in terms of are other studios going to sign on to to make payments to actors, and do those payments apply against their fee when production restarts? How long can the actor be held under contract until production restarts? There are a lot of moving parts to this industry, and it's an interesting industry because it's very gig based, and unlike the rest of the gig economy, which is a phrase that's been in vogue now for the last 5-10 years, and Uber and Lyft and this and that, Hollywood, and pardon the interruption, Hollywood started as a gig based economy when the studio system broke up. Used to be that everyone was under contract to the studios and they went into the studio every day like a regular job. But post World War II, that system broke up, and then a couple of years later, television came into play and really stuck a dagger in the heart of movie going. In 1946, a third of the country went to the movies every week, an astonishing number, because they were watching not just movies and double features and things, they also were watching newsreels. It's the only, there was no television news. So that was the only way to see were we winning against Hitler or not, and to see it in full color and graphic. But television changed that. Now, the average moviegoer in this country sees only about 5 movies a year, somewhere between 5 and 6 is the number, I think. So contrast that with a third of the country going every week. Very different business. the theater chains are endangered. It may well be that one or more of them gets bought by tech companies and reconfigured and reimagined so that the experience becomes something that you can't get in your house, even if you have the big screen and the nice sound system that, some of us do. Amazon was flirting with buying AMC reportedly. I think we'll see more of that.
Well, as somebody who's a big movie goer, I really hope that things work out and we are able to go back, because I love the movie theater experience, and I've thought about the idea of getting a home theater because of what's going on. But again, I don't think anything comes close to the in-theater experience, and I personally will miss that a lot. Well, Jonathan, I recommend everybody will go to The Hollywood Reporter and check out your article. Again, SAG-AFTRA agencies persuade some studios to pay actors idled under contract during pandemic. Can I ask you, lastly, were there any movies that you're hoping to watch this year that got pushed back?
Yeah, the Bond movie, for one, and which was in the can but pushed back, and the Mission Impossible movie that was in production. My movie-going taste is not is far from solely action adventure movies, and but those are two franchises that I do enjoy. And although I don't disagree with you about the movie-going experience, I have to say that the Mission Impossible movie 2 movies ago, where Tom Cruise jumps on the side of an airplane and the airplane takes off, when that airplane takes off, the 2 subwoofers I have in my sound system shake the house. It's pretty amazing what you can do with a good system. One day when you're in LA, I'll give you a demo.
All right. Well, I'm jealous, and I'll hold you to that. Well, Jonathan, again, thank you so much for joining me on the Hub on Hollywood. Wish you the best, and stay safe over there.
Thank you. Absolutely. And you too. Thank you very much.
Fantastic interview, James. Again, this is the Hub on Hollywood. Thank you for listening. You can find us on all of the major streaming services, the iHeartRadios, the iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find us, the Hub on Hollywood. We're also on Twitter. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. Drop us a like, a share, a comment. Spread us around the world. Not much unlike a certain pandemic, but a lot funner. Okay, I'm going to stop. Anyways, so we also, on the Hub on Hollywood today, are talking about one of James's favorite things in the universe, Hamilton.
Hamilton. Now, yeah, this is big news. Again, in the world of pandemic and how movie theaters and plays on Broadway and everywhere are closed, many people have been disappointed with not being able to see plays, especially one of the most popular plays in recent years, Hamilton, that's been taken off Broadway for the moment. But we were told that not only was, Disney bought the rights for Hamilton, the play, and they filmed with the original cast back in 2016, they were preparing to release it in theaters in October of 2021 of next year. However, because of what's going on all over the world, Disney Plus has decided to give us a gift, the greatest gift of all, Hamilton, coming early to Disney Plus on July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July, which is very appropriate because, of course, the American Revolution is pretty much the center of Hamilton. Yeah.
And the 4th of July.
Yeah, so again, this was shot with the original cast at the Richard Rodgers Theater in New York City. Lin-Manuel Miranda, he broke the news himself, and he said on Twitter that he has never been so happy and nervous in his life. Yeah, this comes a day before Independence Day, which is great. The play, a smash hit all around the world. It was actually playing in London at the time that it was forced to shut down, but it grossed $650 million on Broadway and seen by 2.6 million people. I was hoping I would have been one of those people. That, of course, that's not happening, but the second best thing is being brought to our living rooms, and so I'm really excited.
So the first 2.6 million views are going to be yours, correct?
The first night.
All right. So James, I feel like we've got to let the people know, like we've got to give them a little preview of what this is going to sound like, and I hear that you have just a beautiful singing voice. You just have this,
I try.
Like a canary. So why don't you give us a sample of what they're going to be hearing?
Okay, let me see. This is George Washington. We are outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, outplanned. I'm gonna need a. Oh my! I already messed it up.
Come
I
on,
need the music to go with.
It's okay. You can do it.
I need the music to go with me. Can I be real a second? For just a millisecond, let down my guard and tell the people how I feel a second. Well, I'm the model of a modern major general, the venerated Virginian veteran whose men are all lining up to put me up on a pedestal, writing letters to relatives, embellishing my elitism. Oh my God, I lost it.
Right.
I lost it. But it's such a good song. This is why I'm not in the play.
Yeah.
But
no, the only one I know is I want to be in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened, something like that. Anyways, yes, Hamilton, it's going to be spectacular. Disney Plus has been they've kind of been going out of their way to provide people with content while we're all locked away at home, trying to survive and do our part during this pandemic. Our last episode, we were talking about The Princess Bride, that also came to Disney Plus, and there have just been a bunch of other content that would have otherwise been in the theaters, but is making their way onto the services on your smart TVs and other devices and whatnot that have really been helping to keep us going through. So Hamilton, one of those amazing things that is coming soon. When is that coming to Disney Plus?
July 3rd.
Like
Now, of course, you know that I've been listening to the soundtrack on Spotify and everywhere else for like the past year and a half or two now. I watched I felt kind of bad, but you know, it's so hard to get tickets or find time to go see the play wherever it's playing. But actually, I've seen the bootleg version of Hamilton, like, you know, somebody sneaking in a camera or their smartphone or whatnot. I know, but I don't regret it. It's so good. They already made $650 million. I think they're fine with me not watching it. But yeah, so I've seen the production with the original cast. Again, not the best video, not the best angles all the time, but I can't wait because of how they filmed this. They filmed it, I believe, on 3 different nights, one time without an audience, and so they had all the different camera angles. And so it doesn't matter where you're sitting in the theater, you have the best seat in the house because they have all the best shots and everything. Again, with the original cast, which I'm really excited and happy about. Can I ask you really quick, speaking about stuff that's streaming, anything you're watching right now or that you have watched recently?
I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I am still watching Matilda every day. We went ahead and purchased that. That's my son's favorite. He's 4 years old. That's his favorite movie right now. So we watch that about 2 to 3 times a day. My mother is obsessed with Everwood, which is an older show, but is on Netflix that you can see. And as for me, I have been babying James, so I haven't been able to get into the streaming services as much as I would like to. But there's just so much. There's so much out there. Actually, there is an LGBTQ film about 2 friends in high school in Mishawaka, Michigan, I believe is the name of the town. The name of the film escapes me, but a young Asian girl
it's
and her best friend
Booksmart,
was a guy. No, it's not. It's not. We'll put it in the description below after. But fabulous film, really great interaction. You know, there's a lot of high school movies that you watch where it just descends into like cliches and stuff like that, and someone's always the bad guy and someone's the hero, and it's like. And what I really liked about this film was that everyone is just a human being, and everyone makes mistakes, and everyone has hopes and dreams. Even the most popular kids, they can be obnoxious sometimes, but they're far from perfect, and they're, you know, and they interact just as well with the so-called geeks or whatever. I really loved the authenticity and the interactions in that film, of which I will get the title for you guys afterwards. But yeah, so much great stuff to discover on the streaming services if you're stuck at home. If there's something that you really loved or that you would like us to review or preview for you, leave us a comment, leave us send us a note. We will definitely do that for you because we love you guys so much. You, James, what have you been anything that you've been obsessed with or discovered on the streaming services?
So right now, just finished season 1 of Barry with Bill Hader and Henry Winkler, and great series. It gets very dark near the end, but it's very good. Just started season 2, or just about to start season 2 for Barry. Again, we just got Hulu, so yeah, so Barry, great show, hilarious, action, a lot of good action scenes, and again, it does get very dark, and so you're on a roller coaster of emotions, but I highly recommend it, and yeah, can't wait for season 2.
Glass case of emotion. Yes. Oh, I've been watching Community too. I can't do the dark emotions. I can't do the the grimy, the gritty, I could barely tolerate Breaking Bad. But so I've been watching Community also. That was
nice.
From the early 2000s, and that was just funny, highly watchable. Just sit there and binge mindlessly and enjoy.
All right, perfect. Well, if you're binging and watching stuff, yeah, let us know. We would love to check it out. Again, I've been watching a lot of. I've been bouncing from show to show to show, and so I need something else to bounce off to because again, we only have so many hours in the day, and Lord knows we need to fill it up with something.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Hub on Hollywood. Yeah, again, we are on YouTube. If you are watching us, please like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to us on any major streaming service, thank you so much. And follow us on the socials, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Hub on Hollywood. We will be back next week with more reviews and some more surprises. And so thank you so much. I'm James.
I'm Jamie. May the force be with you.
And also with you.
Bye-bye. All right. See you, James.